We are gathered mainly for the commissioning of the building that is just to our north, named in honor of our first Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor. And we are also today marking actually 60th anniversary of the signing of the University of Guyana Act. So in terms of the university coming into legal being, this is 60th anniversary. We've touched that age and we can jump and celebrate, and hopefully we'll have some cake and something else, I don't know, to celebrate this. To get us started, I would invite for a recorded message from our current Chancellor's welcoming remarks from Professor Edward Greene.
This is indeed a day of great significance. It is historic. It helps us to pay homage to the ultimate patron of this university, former Premier and former President of the Republic of Guyana, Dr. Cheddi Jagan. His was the vision for a national university that would contribute towards harnessing the human capital through a higher educational institute that would produce graduates fit for purpose. As we celebrate the proclamation of the Act of April 19, 1963, that gave effect to the establishment of the University of Guyana, we at this institute and in the wider national and regional communities and those in the dispersed Guyana diaspora would honor the ever-present memory of Dr. Jagan. It is in this context the commissioning of the Hogben Drayton building is a significant manifestation of the rich heritage of this university. Lancelot Hogben, the English academician, was an outstanding mathematician and social biologist, and the first chancellor of the university. Professor Harold Drayton, a biologist, public practitioner, and public health advocate, was the first ostensible vice-chancellor and the architect of this university's beginnings. They both have treasured places in the annals of this university, of which this building is a visible and lasting landmark. A significant attribute which this edifice brings to mind is the fact that these outstanding scientists also advocated passionately on behalf of the poor and marginalized. They were both Fabian socialists, a trademark of activist scholarship in an era which the current, future, and visitors to this building may well choose to remember, if not emulate. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Paloma Mohamed Martin, and the senior management of the university, and all those that contributed to this day, for helping us to identify some of the heroes that we must continue to remember as we move forward in celebrating the university's 60th anniversary, 2023 to 24. I thank you for your attention.
And continue on this theme of history, I think it would be remiss of me if we did not take note of the fact that I am now inviting our very first female Vice-Chancellor to address us. So please welcome Professor Paloma Mohamed Martin to give opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone, and once again, please accept our apologies for beginning a bit late. That's because we had a change of site at the last minute because of some sun and some other things, so we had to move around, and I apologize for that. Please permit me also to recognize this afternoon our Chancellor, Professor Edward Greene, our Honorable Minister who might be online. She should have been here in person but was called to an urgent meeting at the last minute. We still hope she's going to be able to be here because she's officially on the program still, so we'll see how that works. But to acknowledge her, to acknowledge my Deputy Vice-Chancellors, Professor Emanuel Cummings, Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Academic Engagement and Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Institutional Advancement, Dr. Melissa Eiffel, to acknowledge the presence of the Registrar, Dr. Nigel Gravesande, who is going to be substantively entertaining us and edifying us this afternoon with his presentation. To acknowledge the presence of our University Librarian, Ms. Gwyneth George, and to thank her and her staff for helping us with some of the arrangements today, especially giving us access to some of the material that you'll hear about. To recognize the Director of the Institute for Distance and Continuing Education, Dr. Jacqueline Murray. To recognize the presence of our Personnel Officer Acting, Marcia Digar. The presence of the Chief Operations Officer of the University, Ms. Arlene McLean, Director of Public Procurement, Planning, and what else? Projects and Mobilization, PPP MU, Nikki Cole and Adrian Sam of that unit as well. To acknowledge Deans of the University, Professor Temitayo from FEES, and I saw Professor Ansari here somewhere just now. I don't know where he went. Some people are sitting on the grass, which is interesting. It's good to be outside. To recognize Professor Bridge Tiwari, Bo, and also the head of FMD and deputy, and of course all the students in this afternoon who will perform in the reenactment. I'm very excited to see this. And members of the Mrs. Dr. Vonna Drayton, who is online and who will speak virtually this afternoon, the wife of the late Professor Harold Drayton, speaking to us from overseas. Of course, Mr. Chairman, and all others from PACE, Vice-Chancellery, Stephen, everyone. This is a special occasion and very, 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 I think, important one for us to do, even though it's small and it's simple, because it marks a moment in our country's history that is very significant, and a moment that has been described as a moment, an act of fate. Some might consider it an act of suicide. It depends. To cut your umbilical cord from somewhere else and to strike up on your own and to say, I'm going to do this, and we're going to do this for our country, a country that had not come into independent being yet. So the university was founded in 1963. You know, we became independent in 66. And so the university predates the country, its country's independence. But I wanted to also acknowledge and recognize the presence of our alum, our deputy, our vice president of our Toronto alumni chapter, Mr. Carwin Dance, who is here from Canada. Thank you so much for being here and representing. And also some very old stalwarts of the university, people who have been with this university and have loved it, and by their presence here this afternoon. In particular, I want to recognize Patrick Ketwaru, because people don't know how much Patrick Ketwaru did in this university during the COVID period when we had to get this place secured. Single-handedly would have worked on getting all of our labs and so on secured with security company alone. And that is amazing, right? So he's here, so I just want to make sure we recognize him, the team from that. So many people, small group, but important. Now, I wanted to read from an excerpt from the book that Professor Drayton has left us with, a book that I find quite comforting at times, because it's like I'm reading about UG now, except he was talking about 60 years ago. And that book is called An Accidental Life. Our library has several copies of it, and of course you can buy it online. And we had launched it here, and I would like to note also and to pay homage to the architects of this project, because while I'm carrying it on, it is not my project. I am just bringing it to culmination, and this is something that we have to accept and recognize and honor the work of others, just as we're honoring the work of the people who are far gone, long gone, by putting their names on the building. This project was started in 2017 by the then Vice-Chancellor, Ivor Griffith, and the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for PI, Dr. Barbara Reynolds. It was a very problematic project in terms of the building itself, because it took a long time for us to get it finished. We only got it finished this year for all kinds of reasons, not the university's fault, but we don't go into that. And I want to recognize that they started this work and we are finishing it. I also want to recognize that the conversation about naming a building for Professor Drayton, we hadn't thought of Hogben back then. The Hogben is this administration, our administration's addition. But there was a conversation in 2017, 2018 about renaming a building that was already named for a former Vice-Chancellor, the Drayton building, which did not find favor because we didn't think we should erase one and put another one on top. And when this building came into being, we found this a perfect solution, so we could keep the one that was already honored, but also add now to somewhere else, and also add a building that was a science building, because as you would have heard from the Chancellor's remarks, both of these gentlemen were scientists. So this is fitting that we could do this now. So having said that, might I read, please, from this? Because I think when you listen to Harold Drayton's words from this book, those of us, we see a lot of young people here who probably don't even have a clue of this was before he was Vice-Chancellor, before I was born, so like before they were even a thought, right? But it's really important for us to hear the sentiment of what UG meant and what UG was supposed to be and what UG was supposed to do, because I think often we forget and we lose this. And I don't think we should. I think I'm going to ask that this passage be blown up big with a photograph and put in that building so that we can remember. So this is what he says on page 724 of his book. He says, "Our University of Guyana is really quite unique. It is the only higher educational institution in all the English-speaking territories of Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, which was created by a colonial people." Let me repeat this. It is the only higher educational institution in all the English-speaking territories of Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, which was created by a colonial people. You think about what that means. Think about the architects of this, what they had to face, but what they persevered and did to make this university possible, so that 60 years later and 50,000 alum later, we could stand here today. I continue. In British Guyana, it was the prospect of early attainment of independence which compelled an assessment of our cultural inheritance and of the human resources that could be relied upon for the building of an independent nation. We were concerned in 1962, 1963, indeed, as we still are, about the pitifully small number of trained people available at professional and middle grade levels to perform a wide variety of skilled tasks. We were concerned about the high cost of post-secondary education overseas, which could be afforded by only a tiny minority of the increasingly large numbers of students attaining secondary school leaving certificates. We were concerned about the brain drain. This is what they were concerned about in 1962. And we're concerned about exactly the same thing 60 years later. I continue. Above all, we were perplexed by the failure of tertiary education, even in the West Indian environment of UWI. I won't repeat that one. To eradicate the old colonial values and the conservative and highly individualistic attitudes, which would clearly be rapidly decreasing utility in the urgent task of social and economic development, and which would be on the agenda after independence. So UG was created as a radical act of self-actualization for a nation. So it was not an accident, it was not thoughtless, it was not anything. UG was very specifically positioned, and the decision was made that we needed to create people who would have the kind of attitudes, mindsets, and training to build our country in the way we wanted. Lack of trained personnel and lack of research were recognized as the two interacting factors which exercise a serious constraint on development. And I see a couple of our deans here, Professor Cummings, look up at me like, same thing, right? We're still struggling, but we're getting there. And so, a national university was created in Guyana. Here and elsewhere, I have described this act of creation as an act of faith, with no capital grants in sight for permanent buildings and equipment, with the prospect of slender and chancy recurrent annual subsidies. Well, no comment. And the related foreseeable difficulties in staff recruitment. How else can one describe the exciting plunge of 1963? But it was an act of faith by a people. I say this without hesitation or qualification, because I do not believe that there has ever been any significant number of people in our country who were opposed in principle to the idea of a national university. I think he's right. Ever so often, an original act of faith requires a pledge of rededication. To our critics, we can smile and say, as with the French, it is the first step which really counts. And with the Barbadian poet, Vonna, we can sing, but whatsoe'er of hours you keep, whatever fades or disappears, above all else we send you this, the flaming faith of our first years. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I could have said it more eloquently than the man who ran this university in the first years. Please read his book. It's very important to understand what he saw, what he experienced, but more important, that he leaves us a legacy so we understand what this university was meant to be and what it is, and what I hope to God it will continue to be. I thank you for coming.
Yeah. Having not read that book myself, some years ago, I grabbed it off the shelf of Austin's for a young colleague who had just joined us in bio. That was his Christmas gift. I hope he's reading. Now I have to check. No, I'll get one of my own. I'm saying history, and I'm smiling about saying history, even though in high school I never liked it. I've come to value history, and we have among us now quite a number of quite distinguished historians, one of whom will speak to us in a few seconds. Our registrar, pardon? Our registrar, Professor Nigel Gravesande, is coming to give us an historical overview of the university. Please welcome him.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I will stand on the comprehensive protocol established by the esteemed Vice-Chancellor and there is no one to add. So I stand on that. This presentation builds on the very seminal work 10 years ago that was done by a very distinguished historian. I am a student of history, but this was a very distinguished historian. Sister Mary Noel Meniz, whose work I found in the Caribbean Reference Library. But more importantly, librarian has captured in that collection some authentic primary source materials of the period 1960 to 1963 and verbatim reports of the then Legislative Assembly. This morning I labored over them and captured some of which has not yet been written about this great institution. So I'm indeed honored, but I'm extremely humbled to have been requested by the Vice-Chancellor to share with you a brief history of our university now celebrating its 60th year. Where has this time gone? It is to recall that it was Friday, April 19th, 2013, at an interfaith service to mark the 50th anniversary of a bipartisan passage of the University of Guyana Ordinance number 63, April 19th, 1963. And I was saying to the PRO before this, I stumbled on a document in the CRL that after 7.5 hours of debate led by the Honorable C.V. Nunes, the then Minister of Education, it was 10 after 4 that the Assembly unanimously passed this bill. And we are after 4 this afternoon, reflecting on this historic moment. And that was held at the George Walcott Lecture Theatre. Today, April 19th, 2023, we are gathered as a proud community outside of the registry building, one of the first administrative offices established in 1963, where rests the cornerstone for the Turkine campus as we commemorate, reflect, and celebrate the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the university. In October 1963, the first day, and some 6 months after its establishment, the University of Guyana commenced its operations at the Queen's College compound with a student enrollment of 164. Instructively, in that first batch of students, there were 140 males and 20 females, and the average age was 42. If we compare that demographic today, we will observe a transformation. And each of them were paying at that time Guyana $100 per annum as the stipulated tuition fee. 3 years later, in 1967, at the first graduation exercise, there were 32 graduates, comprising of 28 males and 4 females. But with its first programs being delivered and confined to 3 faculties, namely arts, natural sciences, and social sciences, the University of Guyana has grown exponentially with a current student population as of noon today, the 19th of April 2023, that numbers 10,283, delivering a total of 151 programs at both the graduate and undergraduate level. And at our most recent graduation exercise, happening within the context of this academic year, it conferred degrees, diplomas, and certificates at the Turkine campus, numbering 2,511. At the UGBC campus, 262, with a historic combined number for both campuses amounting to 2,773. And when we add the IDC's graduating numbers of 602 for this year, this institution, in its 60th year of existence, has graduated a total number, historic, 3,375 graduates. But these pioneering academic units, 3 in number, were followed by education in 1967, technology in 1969, and one of the best kept secrets, the IDCE in 1975. Agriculture followed in 77, health sciences in 81, and which was an outgrown of the Faculty of Natural Sciences. But by the turn of the new millennium, there was the formation of the School of Earth and Environmental Sciences, which was subsequently transformed into a faculty. Also, and very importantly, at the turn of the new millennium, there was another significant historical landmark with the establishment of the Berbice campus at Tain. But why do we need, or why did we need, and why do we currently need a university? I am forced to quote from the university's renowned historian, Sister Mary Noel Meniz, when she says, quote, "The need for a university was indeed vital and critical. In that institutional personnel for the civil service, teachers for the education system, and programs of industrial, agriculture, and social development had to be the main focus in 1963. She continues, above all, active research was critical in the context of the conflicts occurring in the early 60s to stimulate the intellectual life of the society and cause people to reflect on the need for objectivity. And we have to ask ourselves, after 60 years, is Sister Noel's commentary relevant? That plan, as she reflected, is still relevant, especially at this juncture of our nation's history. But UG's recorded early history in manuscript, handwritten, reveals a period of some difficulty and challenges when lecturers, and this is coming from the academic board deliberations, had to be on the spot at Queen's College to ensure getting a classroom before another colleague had bagged it. But despite the inconveniences in these early years, there was a pioneering gaiety as described by Sister Noel, a spirit of camaraderie and sharing among staff and students. Distinguished English lecturer, Professor Bill Carr realistically captured the nostalgia of Queen's College days when he said, with its stairs and rooms smelling of boys, stale buns, spilt sweet drinks, and assorted venom. Indeed, an atmosphere not wholly conducive to learning, end of quote. The university was propelled, and that cornerstone was laid in October 1970 after a mere 3 years of such turbulence as reflected by Professor Bill Carr. This university heralded the opening of classes at Queen's College with what was described as an impressive one. So much so that it moved the Booker Group of companies to donate 56 hectares of land at Turkine, where we now are, for the permanent site of the university. From far and wide came donations of books for the library, topped by a generous gift, librarian, in your library of 1,805 titles in the first year. And this came from the British Council in Guyana. The library is a hub of every university. A university can more survive without lecturers, but not, Sister Noel says, without a library. The university in its earlier days would have been blessed with outstanding administrators. Just to name a few, Professor Arthur Lewis, Chancellor, former CARICOM Chief Executive William Demas, Commonwealth Secretary General Sir Sridhar Ramphal, Pro-Chancellor Sir John Carter, Harold Davis, and more recently, Major General retired Joseph Singh. Vice-Chancellors over the years included Professor Alan R. Earp, Dr. Dennis Irvin, Dr. George Walcott, the first Guyanese, succeeded by another Guyanese, Professor Dennis Craig, and subsequently Harold Lutchman, James Rose, Lawrence Carrington, Jacob Obadiah, Ivelaw Griffith, and finally, history was again created with the appointment of Professor Paloma Mohamed as our 11th Vice-Chancellor and the institution's first female to hold this high office. She is with us today. Let us celebrate that. Were I to note all the exceptional heads of academic and administrative departments and lecturers, the time of 8 minutes allocated to me would not suffice. But in honor of the first graduate program that this university began in 1973, the history department was launched. A Master of Arts degree in History of Guyana and Caribbean Studies, which over the years have produced many leading historians, not only in Guyana but overseas. These include Basdio Mangru, Khalil Mohamed, Tota Mangar, former Deputy Vice-Chancellor, David Chanderbali, former Registrar, Dr. James Rose, former Vice-Chancellor, among other noteworthy historians and students of history. Former President of the Cooperative Republic, David Granger, Honorable Carl Singh, former Chancellor, Acting Chancellor of Guyana, and I must add, unless I get into trouble, former lecturer and columnist Freddie Kisoon, and the late Dr. Desiree Fox, MP. As we ponder on the accomplishments of our students and our faculty over these years, it is my own deliberate judgment to end this brief with a historical survey that reminds us of what was captured in the message from the Minister of Education, the Honorable Priya Manikchan, on the occasion of the 50th anniversary, when she asserted, and I quote her, "I do acknowledge the good work that the university has done and implore that it continues to engage its stakeholders and to maintain a dynamic environment, continue to improve in the areas of training and of research, align your teaching with contemporary issues, and use innovative strategies." The verbs that the Honorable Minister used are very instructive. Further, she called upon the university to play a more dominant role in driving the development of the nation, and said there are high expectations for meeting the university, the education needs of this country by the University of Guyana, end of quote. Today, Wednesday, April 19, 2023, we are fortunate that the Honorable Priya Manikchan is the Minister of Education 10 years later. Let us await our exhortation and assessment 10 years later as we celebrate our 60th anniversary. In concluding, we must thank God for His support and guidance. At the same time, we must express heartfelt gratitude to all members of the administration, staff, both academic and clerical, and our students, our alumni, who gave of their best and of their expertise to guide this university. The task has not been an easy one. As those of us who are privileged to be with the university, were privileged to be with the university in its early years of trial and error will recall. But we must always remember that nothing worthwhile, be it in our spiritual, academic, and material lives, can be accomplished without the dedication to the task, hard work, and unwavering assurance that success will be the outcome. To the administration, staff, students, alumni, my warmest congratulations. May you continue to experience continuing success in every field and make this country of ours and your university, our university, proud of us. I end with Sister Noel's Latin exhortation, "Co non ascendum," which when translated into English means, "To what heights may we not ascend?" And another academic, a Roman Catholic Jesuit priest, at the 50th anniversary, used another Latin expression, recorded in our library, "Ad multos annios," when Father Malcolm Rodriguez, when translated into English. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gravesande. Ladies and gentlemen, we have distinguished honor this afternoon to have not physically in our presence, but joining us via Zoom, the wife of the late Professor Harold Drayton, Dr. Vonna Drayton. Born in Victoria Village on the east coast of Demerara, Dr. Vonna Drayton started her professional career at the University of Guyana as a lecturer in the Faculty of Health Sciences, serving as head of the Department of Public Health and later as assistant dean. Dr. Drayton was nominated and received the Overseas Development Administration Fellowship in 1988 to pursue a Master's of Arts degree in Health Management, Policy and Planning at the Nuffield Institute for Health Services Studies, at Leeds University in the UK. On her return to the University of Guyana in 1991, Dr. Drayton directed the UG University of Texas Medical Branch Dreyfus Health Foundation project, which focused on improving community health. This led to her nomination for the Hubert H. Humphrey Fellowship in 1993 and her advanced training in epidemiology and public health at Emory University and Loma Linda University, respectively. A member of the American Public Health Association, she serves as peer reviewer for the Maternal and Child Health Journal. Throughout her career, Dr. Vonna Drayton has applied her epidemiological skills to successfully execute public health research, evaluations, and assessments of state, federal, and international policies, projects, and programs. She has conducted public health evaluations for the Texas Department of State Health Services, led the development and implementation of NIMR's Health and Prevention Services strategy frameworks for evaluation of the Delaware Childhood Obesity Reduction Initiative, and directed evaluations of federal programs as a senior associate at Abt Associates and at Bose Allen Hamilton. Currently a Fulbright foundational specialist, Dr. Drayton serves as an adjunct professor at the University of Delaware College of Health Sciences and the George Washington University Milken Institute School of Public Health. As principal of Caldray Consulting, Dr. Drayton provides consulting services to nonprofit organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to give your attention to the screen as we'll hear from Dr. Vonna Drayton.
Esteemed guests, colleagues of the University of Guyana, students and friends. On this very happy occasion, I thank the Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor for reaching out to me and members of the Drayton family to participate in the commissioning of the Hogben Drayton building, as well as the commemoration of the 60th anniversary of the Act of Parliament that established the university. My late husband, Professor Harold Alexander Drayton, was one of the early pioneers who was tasked by then Premier Cheddi Jagan to establish the University of Guyana in 1963. Harry, as he was fondly known to his friends, was born in Georgetown, where he received his early primary schooling. He completed his secondary education at Modern High School and later at Queen's College. In 1948, he won an open scholarship to the University College of the West Indies, Jamaica, now the University of the West Indies. After a stint of high school teaching in Jamaica, he entered the University of Edinburgh, Scotland, where he completed his bachelor's and doctoral degrees between 1954 and 1960, before taking up a lectureship position in Ghana. In December of 1962, Harry responded to Dr. Jagan's call to return home and lead the university project. Within 10 months, he was able to get the university operational with classes commencing in October of 1963. And so, a national university was created in Guyana that Dr. Drayton refers to as an act of fate. And I quote, with no capital grants in sight for permanent buildings and equipment, with the prospect of slender and chancy recurrent annual subsidies, and the related foreseeable difficulties in staff recruitment. How else can one describe that exciting plunge of 1963? But it was an act of faith by a people. I use the word faith in the special sense of a collective confidence or trust that in the long run, all would be well and that our mission would prosper. And as we can all see, for generations of Guyanese like me, the university has prospered. Many UG graduates hold positions of leadership at home and abroad, and many more will continue the proud tradition of dedication and excellence exemplified by the founders of this institution. Although Harry is not around in the flesh to speak for himself, let me leave you with the words of the late poet Maya Angelou from our poem When Great Trees Fall. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. This new reality, after a period of peace, blooms slowly and always irregularly. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. I am sure Harry and the team of dedicated professionals who work together for the establishment of this university would expect us to be better. And with that, let me say thanks to everyone who were here today to dedicate this building and to continue the great work that those pioneers started some 60 years ago. Thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon you will experience just a small part of the debate which led to the passage of the University of Guyana's Act in April of 1963. You will hear excerpts of the contribution of the Honorable B.H. Ben of the governing People's Progressive Party, who was Minister of Agriculture, Forests and Lands, and member of the Demerara Coast West. Mr. R.E. Cheeks of the United Force, who was the member for Georgetown North, and Mr. L.F.S. Burnham of the People's National Congress, who was the member for Rheinveld. You will also hear some words from His Honor, the Speaker, Mr. R.B. Gajraj. These debates occurred on March 29th, April 4th, and April 5th, 1963, and excerpts have been pulled from contributions on these 3 days. By nature, they cannot represent the entirety of the views and positions of these members, and some points may require a full reading of the records to grasp the full context. Importantly, nothing has been added to the words by any member. Gaps will be filled by narration. And so we begin on March 29th, 1963.
The Minister of Agriculture and Land resumed his speech, the motion regarding the government's education policy. Mr. Bunn?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the sitting was suspended at 4 o'clock yesterday, we had come to a point where we had considered the type of education that was needed for this system that was in vogue. And we saw the necessity for modifying this in keeping with the new trends. It is desirable to consider education in the light of these new trends, in the light of these economic changes. And that is why the comprehensive picture is shown in the sessional paper number 1 of 1963. There is a well-known proverb which says, While the dog was barking, the caravan was moving. This proposition is proved clearly, for in spite of the distractions, the caravan of educational progress is moving gradually and steadily along. At a later stage, we will be dealing with the University of Guyana bill, and I am sure that members on both sides of the House will agree with me that there is tremendous need for more University Guyana education for Guyanese. There are many problems. We must not allow these problems to prevent us from moving in the direction we believe to be desirable. It is not possible at present for as many Guyanese who can benefit from university education to secure it. It is true that we could award scholarships, but there is a limit to the number of scholarships that could be given. It is therefore thought that government could pay passages for students to go to Jamaica or any other place. But then the fees are prohibitive for a certain wage group, so that government deems it desirable to embark on the establishment of a University of Guyana, starting faculties of arts, social science, and natural science at the low fee of $100 a year. In the university that will be set upon, the fee will be $100 a year. I am sure that many of us sitting around this table on bearing this hope that we were younger, so that we can have an opportunity once again, because some of us have become fossilized, to take advantage of a university education at $100 a year. Of course, some of us were more fortunate to have won scholarships, or our parents could have afforded it. But others were not able to go to Jamaica or to England. And there were not so many scholarships then as there are now. I am sure that honorable members will agree that this is a wonderful opportunity for young people of Guyana, and it demonstrates the government's earnestness, not only in bringing education to the Guyanese people at large, but also in trying to provide the trained people of whom we are so greatly in need. The fact is that the government has decided to set up a University of Guyana and to subsidize the fee of $100 per year, which shows the earnestness of the government's intention to Education Policy 1517, to provide trained people for Guyana, business, and industry. Professor Arthur Lewis has estimated that British Guyana will require between 100 and 150 general degree graduates per year of the liberal arts type, for secondary school teaching, for the civil service, for business administration, journalism, and other occupations which demand, in the words of the professor himself, a good general education rather than professional expertise. This is taken from sessional paper number 2 of 1963. It is precisely this type of education which the faculties of the University of Guyana will provide in the initial stage. But I should like honorable members to understand that the establishment of a University of Guyana has not come about because of any spite on the part of the government, but because over the years we have set the need for it. And as a result of examination of our present financing arrangement with the UWI and the need to provide higher education for more students right here in their own country, it is sometimes regrettable that in discussions with our young people, it is discovered that they do not know anything about their own country, even our young people who have studied at the UWI. I understand that more than 600 persons have applied for places in the University of Guyana. This shows the tremendous amount of enthusiasm for this institution. We have had 558 applicants for the Agriculture Institution and more than 600 for the University of Guyana. I am sure that honorable members of this House will agree with me that there is a tremendous enthusiasm, a thirsting for education in this country, and it is the duty of the government to try to satisfy this. Honorable members are aware of the intention of the government to use the facilities available at Queen's College for this institution. When I was Minister of Education, I said that you could educate people under a tree, and some people thought that this was a disgusting statement. It is nevertheless a famous and well-known statement among educationists. The accommodation at Queen's College, I am advised, is temporary. In other words, the university will not be housed there all the time. Students will be trained in the evening. I am advised that it is the same principle on which the students in Barbados will be educated, when a similar institution, which is described as Liberal Arts College, established in that island. I think I have stated as concisely as possible what are the government's intentions as regards to university education. I have mentioned its availability to the Guyanese people, the possibility of finding places outside for those persons who want to do more in the professional faculties and postgraduate fields. And I have gone into the accommodation to be provided for the University of Guyana. I have been advised that the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Guyana has arrived and is holding discussions with the Ministry of Education on the proposition and is working out final details of the establishment of the university. I have done as much as I can to explain some of the highlights. If I may do so, of session papers numbers 1 and 2. As I said earlier, the opportunity will arise for us to debate the University of Guyana bill and the propositions which will have to be considered specifically will be dealt with under that head. I feel that these papers, which have an idea of government's educational policy, mark the turning point in our educational and social life. As I have said, we have come through many years of struggle and toil and have had to fit ourselves into such a pattern as would suit the economic system. There has been a tremendous change now. And as the Honorable Minister of Education himself said, we have to be able to grapple with these problems which meet us. I therefore have the pleasure in moving the motion for the adoption of the government's education policy as set out in sessional papers numbers 1 and 2 of 1963.
April 4th, 1963.
Previously, when the suspension was taken, the honorable member of Aber had concluded his speech. May I have an indication as to who will speak now? Okay, Mr. Greene.
I would like to pay tribute to the authors of these two white papers for a tremendous job of work they have done. In part, represents an effort to grapple with the very serious problems of education which face this country today. If one could not have seen in them the customary threat of intolerance and the dictatorial attitude which we have become accustomed to expect from the government. In all aspects of its activity, it would have not been difficult to make adverse criticisms. These two documents combined represent what appears to me to be a complete philosophy of education, and the government has made no effort to conceal the basic principles behind that philosophy and plan. Turning to this document, the White Paper on Higher Education, that is, say that I propose to deal with thus. On a latter occasion that I will refer to 1 or 2 points now. I have in my hand sessional papers number 265. I want to ask the Honorable Minister, what is the real position of the university? Rather, I should say the Guyana College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, with respect to sponsorship. Are we to expect sponsorships from McGill University, or are we to be affiliated with the University of the West Indies? It seems as though a decision has not been made. The establishment of a university costs millions, tens of millions of dollars, and I would like to question the capacity of the government or any government that takes over to establish a university whose degree would have universal recognition on the shoestring economy that we have. How is the government going to maintain this? I cannot now maintain an educational system that includes no university, but is going to be an university, the most expensive of educational institutions. It is not that we don't want a university. Every Guyanese must look forward with hope that the day will come when we will have a university of world renown. That day will be a great day. But they start in confusion. They make an attempt here and one there, and you are left with the impression that they are unwilling to mention the affiliation they really wish, because we are not yet a free territory. The Honorable Minister, in his speech, told us that there were 600 applicants for places in the University of Guyana. It would be interesting to know what the qualifications of these 600 applicants are. It is stated here what the minimum qualifications will be, and the minister cannot stand in the house and tell me that these 600 applicants have those qualifications.
Thank you, Mr. Cheeks. The first item on today's order paper is the resumption of the debate on the motion for the Assembly to approve in principle of the education policy as set out in sessional papers number 1 of 1963 and number 2 of 1963. I believe that when we were last dealing with this motion, the Honourable Member, Mr. Rumvelt, was then speaking. He may now resume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, ours is a country with forests. It is a country with large mineral resources. And perhaps at the same time, or within the near foreseeable future, we could set up professional schools in Guyana to serve the region in the same way as it is proposed that the professional schools and specialized institutions in Jamaica and even Trinidad should serve their entire region. We could have considered, as proposed by the PNC, the setting up of a school of forestry and a school of mining. Now, the People's Progressive Party does not necessarily agree with the PNC as to the priorities so far as specialized and professional schools are concerned. But I cannot see any group of sensible people having any logical argument to put forward against the proposals we make so far as to the general arrangements are concerned. They might not, for instance, think that forestry and mining were immediately relevant. We might further have thought that just as relevant as forestry and mining was a faculty of zoology, because we believe that British Guyana offers a number of engaging prospects for research in that field. May I, before I move on, say that I agree with the further conclusion of this paper, that in time Guyana can develop its own University of the West Indies. But then, as the author of this paper said, that would be a part of the university system of the Caribbean. There would still be that spirit of fellowship and that possibility of exchange. I should have hoped that when these institutions are set up, regardless of the regis, regardless of the sponsorship, there will be an effort to Guyanize them. And when I say Guyanize, I don't necessarily mean that every member of the staff must be Guyanese, but I feel it would be to the benefit of the institution that if all of the staff were not Guyanese. But while qualified Guyanese are in other institutions, persons from abroad can be coming here. But the basis of the staff should be Guyanese eventually. I should hope too that in the College of Arts and Sciences, we would have the teaching of relevant languages. I feel, for instance, that more emphasis should be placed on the teaching of Spanish. We are on a Spanish continent, and I feel very strongly about the suggestions that I'm about to make. We should have the subject like the Hindu language and Urdu as degree subjects at this institution of higher learning. We have a large section of the population whose native language is Hindi, and it is still a living and literacy language. I do feel that every effort should be made to have Hindi taught, or at least made an optional subject at our institution. I should hope also that immediate steps, and when I say immediate, I'm not as starry-eyed as a minister to believe that it can be set up by September really. But who knows? It is an atomic age. I speak immediate in terms of setting up. I feel that steps should be taken to have a school of law. A country is unworthy of the description of independent if it does not have its own jurisprudence, if it does not have its own school of law. It may well be that if we set up a school of law, we will have more lawyers, and maybe some people will think that this is a disadvantage. Even if it is a disadvantage to have a superabundance of lawyers, I think that the advantage of having a situation where we can formulate our own legal system and science of jurisprudence outweighs the disadvantages of having a great number of lawyers. For instance, too, the English law of illegitimacy is completely irrelevant to our society. Now, that I would necessarily suggest that the progeny from associations unhallowed by the church or the state should be encouraged, but one has got to be realistic. According to the English law and the English concept of legitimacy and illegitimacy, more than 50% of our population is illegitimate. If one looks carefully among both the Africans and the Indians, that simply does not make sense. I noticed that there is going to be an appeal for books from the British Council. Good shows. I hope that the British Council answers the appeal, but I do hope that the selection will be made by knowledgeable persons. I do wish that the government would appreciate that the establishment of libraries does not mean the collection of single copies of books, that a library has got to be an extensive and expensive undertaking. Now, I want to tell the government this. I have been very critical. I am not critical of the Ministry of Agriculture, Forest and Lands on the question of education, because the minister is a hard-working minister and he must be congratulated upon being able to put forward the government education policy in addition to his normal duties. But I would say, however critical I might have been, it is because I sincerely want an education system which is not only relevant, but which ensures the development of the individual, as a member of the community, fitting him better for the community. This, I concede, is the object of education. I do not think it is a matter of which political tempers should rise.
Honorable Member, in our paper, the second reading, the bill entitled "An Order to Provide for the Establishment and Incorporation of the University of Guyana and for Matters Connected Therewith." It is my understanding, honorable members, through their party leaders, have agreed to the sitting being carried on to 7:30 this evening, instead of ending at 6:30 p.m., so that we may be able to get on further with this particular bill that we would not otherwise.
Mr. Speaker, I should like to be clearly understood that it is the government's intention to carry on with the establishment of the University of Guyana. Many statements over the wireless and in the newspaper have given the impression that the communique issued by the Honorable the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the Honorable Premier of British Guyana have indicated the government's decision not to proceed with its idea of setting up the university. I want it to be understood quite clearly that the government has not given up its intention to establish a University of Guyana. I said during my speech on the motion on which we just voted that the whole policy of the government would be to make education easily available to the whole Guyanese community. That is the intention of the government in setting up this University of Guyana. No longer will it be necessary for Guyanese students to leave this country and to spend several years in Jamaica for a course that can be provided in the University of Guyana in its faculties of liberal arts and sciences. No longer will it be necessary for young people to feel that the goal of the university education is very far beyond their reach. The basic idea, aside from the philosophical promise of government's educational policy, is the idea to make it available to all. The fact that Guyanese students can go to the University of Guyana, which will be to make it easily available. The fees for attendance will be $100 per annum. It is important to note that in order to underline the government's desire to make this university of the highest caliber, a very distinguished Vice-Chancellor who is in the House today has been chosen. And I am advised that efforts are being made to secure eminent and able professors for the university. Another point that I would like to note is the fact that Mr. Edgar Mortimer, Duke, CBE, a Guyanese and a most distinguished jurist and scholar, has been chosen to be the first Chancellor of the University of Guyana. There will be 3 faculties to begin with: the Faculty of Arts, the Faculty of Natural Science, and the Faculty of Social Science. And others may be established from time to time in keeping with the government's ability, financial or otherwise, and the need for them.
Honorable members, the question is that will the bill be read a second time?
The question was put and agreed to, and the bill read a second time.
Honorable members, we have reached the end of our time as agreed for tonight. We will finish the bill in committee tomorrow when we resume.
April 5th, 1963.
Honorable that last evening, a decision was taken in the motion for the second reading of the bill entitled An Ordinance to Provide for the Establishment and Incorporation of the University of Guyana for Matters Connected Therewith. The bill has now to be considered clause by clause in committee.
On clause 12,
I agree with that. It is the same observation I was making with respect to another bit of legislation. I congratulate the Honorary Attorney General. Clause 12 has amended, agreed to, an order to stand apart.
the final point in the debate would be from the Attorney General on clause 19. The Attorney General said, and I quote, "I move that the question be put in respect of clause 19 as it is drafted, and with that, clause 19 as printed, agreed to, and ordered to stand part of the bill. The Assembly would resume, and the bill reported with amendments that was read the third time and passed." Ladies and gentlemen, please give a bigger round of applause as we acknowledge those representing. We'll start with the Speaker, Mr. R.B. Gadraj. Of course, he was represented by Mr. Manav Sharma. The Honorable B.H. Ben, none other by Norwell Hines. Mr. R.E. Cheeks by Ronika Robin. Mr. L.F.S. Burnham by Celine Chase. And I've been your narrator, Miss Marissa Morgan Bunny. Thank you very much.
Indeed, it has been a memorable event today. It's been interesting going through all those historical documents, and you can't help but be extremely grateful for the people who have come before us and has set up a pretty interesting dynamic that we have to work through and create a better Guyana for ourselves, and an amazing institution to kind of lead the innovative path for that. So coming up, this is one of our 60th anniversary events. We've had a few, and we have one ongoing right now, which is the Artist in Residence production. We have three dates remaining. Tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we have 2 matinee shows tomorrow. 2 matinee shows on Thursday and Friday, and we have 2 evening shows on Friday evening and Saturday evening. You can get your tickets at the Pace office or at the Theatre Guild. Tomorrow, we launch our UG Career Day and Job Fair, and that is being launched under the theme Advancing Local Content Priorities, Maximizing Opportunities, and that'll be interesting. I just want to mention the panel discussions that we're going to have. One of those will be capitalizing on your competitive edge, networking and career growth, negotiating your compensation package. I mean, if you're a 21st century person, that skill you might want to up. You know, we have some interesting companies here in Guyana, and I think that they understand the need for us to kind of accelerate that. And the final panel discussion will be transferring your skills, and we know that we kind of have to in this climate because it's ever revolving. After another event I want to plug is the second Diaspora Conference coming up in May, and that'll run from May 8th to 10th, and that is being run under the theme Calling 592, Honoring Research, Reigniting Diaspora. And that promises to be an interesting conversation about creative culture and our future. I also want to plug our dinner with Sir Clive that is coming up. Sir Clive, hi. Sir Clive Lloyd, hi. Our interfaculty cooking competition that'll come up at some point. The launch of our golf program. The second homecoming, which is the Science and Technology Conference. The history of the faculty booklet, which will release at some point. The history or alumni association chapters will be launched. That will be the UK chapter, the New York chapter, the Canadian chapter, and the Caribbean chapter. And we are also launching, along with our talent competition, which I did not remember to plug. That is coming up on April 26th. That's going to launch on April 26th. The dates for that is the 26th, April 26th, April 27, April 29. Those are our preliminary rounds. And our quarterfinal rounds are on May 3, May 4. Semi-final rounds are May 11. Semi-final round, that is on May 11th. Finals on May 8th. And we have the winner announcement on May 25th. That has a text-to-vote component to it. And I hope that you tune in. It'll be interesting to see who the judges are for those competition. And we'll announce them pretty soon. To get you all hyped and pumped, please look out for the contestants. They might be your friends, colleagues. We encourage you to text and to vote. This is a fundraiser, so please text as many times as you want to and vote as many times as you want to. Somebody laughed. The launch of our songwriting competition is coming up. So is our University Faculty Week. This is one I'm looking forward to very much. Is our Indigenous Peoples Conference coming up in September. That will be pretty exciting. I'm ready for that conversation that's going to be had. We look forward to our Brainwaves Boat Cruise in October, the launch of our 60th anniversary tabletop book. That is an exciting one. We'll have our homecoming later this year and our breakfast walk to commemorate the beginning of classes at the University of Guyana, which classes started at QC. So that we'll also commemorate that as we have done today. We'll also launch the UG People magazine, which will feature influential UG graduates. And I will not keep you longer. All right, so yes, and you can visit the celebrateug60.com website for everything else. Please keep tuned in. We promise to advance the University of Guyana with vibrance and innovation.
Thank you very much, Joelle. And for the final words here, I invite our Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Academic Engagement, Professor Emanuel Cummings.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening. Day has died in the West, and it's indeed a pleasure to be part of this historic occasion. All protocols have been observed. I just want to start by saying that this afternoon has really been a significant activity. And as I observe all that took place this afternoon, I want to say that what happened in 1963 and what is happening now, I see no difference. After 60 years, particularly after listening to the debate, which was quite relevant to what was then and now, a lot of the speeches that came out, at least one of the things I noticed a more friendly atmosphere among the two political sides, which I think is a great lesson for all of us. But much more importantly, I think the context of the debate then is more relevant now. I heard about law school, which that was 60 years ago. Our leaders then, and tribute to the late Chedi Jagan from conceptualizing the university and having such a great vision that we've all, over 60 years, would have benefited from. As I said, the law school, the School of Forestry, the role of the University of Guyana as a Caribbean institution. After 60 years, I think with our newfound wealth and opportunities that are at our doorsteps, I can see the dream of our forefathers 60 years ago can become a reality. Vice-Chancellor, Chancellor, or the senior members of the academic community that are here, this has been a very refreshing session. I want to suggest that debate be shared. I really enjoyed it. I think some opportunity must be given for the full text of that conversation be shared with a wider Guyanese society. I think it will certainly benefit us all as we listen to the intellectual discussion by our fathers, our political fathers, as well as those who thought that education was the best investment. We have seen what the University of Guyana would have done over the years in terms from, as Registrar would have said, from 32 graduates to nearly 3,000, from 3 faculties to 8 faculties in many schools and institutes. From 167 students we had in the first, we now having 11,000. And so it has transformed the society, all sectors of the society. And as the Act says with respect to the establishment of the university, the purpose of a university is to deal with problems within the society. University of Guyana has been the forefront of it. It has served this country, not only this country, the region, but the world at large, and it will continue to do so. Best wishes for as we continue, best wishes to ourselves, as we continue to celebrate and to observe the 60th anniversary, which I think in my mind, in the context of a university, is considered as a teenager. However, as a teenager, the university has, I would say, a mature teenager, and has done very well in bringing us to this point. Thank you very much, and may you enjoy the rest of the evening. This has been a very historical, educational, and rewarding evening. May you enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you very much.